Alright, so this is me going ahead and marking where I want to have a general idea of where I want my mama to go along my neckline. I'm turning it inside out now. It's kind of off screen, but I always turn it inside out and use the spray adhesive on one layer of medium cutaway. I'm doing medium this time because it's not a super dense design. I normally do one layer of heavy for my more dense designs. I'm going to give myself a little bit more than what I really need in terms of the stabilizer and the size of it, just because I may have to move my hoop around a little bit, and I'm sorry my body is in the way here, but I'm basically placing it around where I marked where I wanted my mama to go, and I'm kind of eyeballing a lot of this. I always take straight pins and pin right along the edges where my stabilizer goes for two reasons. Number one, even though there's spray adhesive, sometimes it can get pulled away when you turn the shirt inside out or you're trying to hoop it. And also, the pins usually give me a good indicator of where the end of my stabilizer is, so that when I turn it inside out and I go to put my hoop there, I kind of know what room I have to work with, so that I don't hoop outside of where the stabilizer is. I like to make sure my shirt and stabilizer is really good and tight. Tight like a drum. Don't like for it to be too loose, so that helps with that too, having those pins there. You don't have to do that. That's just a preference for me. So now I've got my stabilizer in place, how I want it to be, and I'm going to go ahead and hoop it. Anytime I hoop, I make sure that my connectors for the hoop to the machine are going up toward the collar of the shirt. That way, when I have to position it on my machine, which is a single needle PE 800, I like for all of my extra fabric, to be on the outside of the machine rather than towards the neck of the machine. And now I'm just getting it lined up. I know based on the design that I created on my software, which you'll see here in just a second, that the mama design is going to go from side to side in my 5x7 hoop. So I'm kind of just eyeballing where I think the word will be once I get it on the machine. And I'll go into that here in just a minute, but I'm basically just seeing where I think it'll go and seeing if that's, kind of where I'm going to want it. You can always rotate it, move it around on the machine, but it's easier to make sure your placement of the hoop is exactly where you want it, so you're not having to take it back off of your machine and redo it. And as you can see, I'm using that pin on the side to make sure I don't go past my stabilizer. And you may have to play around with this a little bit. I don't know anyone who gets it perfect the first time. I like to eyeball a lot of my stuff, but again, that's going to come with time, practice, experience. And I see where the curve is probably going to be based on what it looks like in my software and how it lines up in the hoop in my software. Make sure it's nice and tight. And this is just me showing you that when I tap on the fabric from the inside, that it is tight like a drum. You see very, very little movement when I'm tapping there. And now we're going to go to the design. Alright, so I've already got my 5x7 hoop selected. Going to go up to IA, which is an embroidery. Select that. Go over here. I always use the I Love Glitter font for my mama curved necklines. There it is. Type in mama. Alright. And so now I've got it in there in my frame. I'm going to go down here, click on this circle, then I'm going to select place on bottom. That gives me my curve. Now I do just a little bit of moving around because I don't want these extra pieces showing as it's stitching. I want it to look like it's all one script. So I just gently, just a little bit, move my fonts around. There we go. I might do M a little bit, but I don't know if that'll mess up my A. Yeah. Maybe like that. There we go. So there's my word. There's mama. Now, what I do next is place my my little markers to help me, and I'll show you what I mean on my machine in just a few minutes. I place a marker at the top of this M and at the top of this A in my software. And the reason for this is I'll show you in just a minute when we get on the machine. The reason I do this is because my machine that I use for embroidery, which I have a Brother PE 800, it doesn't have the option for like some kind of a laser or a line up on the machine. So I have to kind of use what I've got to be able to line it up. And this way, for me, has worked the best, and it's never failed me so far. So what I do is I just go back to, as if I'm going to add text, and go over here, and all I'm doing is adding a period, just a dot, like that right there. I move that dot to the very top of my M, and I'm going to copy and paste it. So that's going to give me 2 of those. The other one's going to go at the top of my A. Now, as I said before, I'm not actually going to stitch these. These are just markers for me to help me get it lined up once it's on my machine. Right now I am changing some colors around because I don't like them to all have the same color. I don't want to confuse myself or, overlook something. So I make those 2 little dots a different color. I'm going to go right over here, and this is my word. These are the dots. So this is the order in which my machine is going to stitch. So what I'm going to do is move these 2 little dots up above. Move earlier. All right. So the way the machine is reading this now is that it will stitch this dot, then this dot, and then mama. Like I said, we're not stitching the dots, but I just want my machine to think that. It'll make it easier to navigate once it gets on my machine, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. I'm done with my word, and so I'm going to go ahead and save it, which I already have saved another version of it. I just wanted to redo it to show you guys. So now we're going to move on to the machine. Okay, so we're on the machine now. I've got my shirt loaded up here. It's all ready to go. I've already got my design uploaded. You can see I've got the mama design. It's facing the correct way where I need it to go, and you can even see the little yellow dot and the purple dot that I added. How I line my design up on the curved neckline, I always go to the very end as if I'm ready to start embroidering. And this tells you what order the machine is going to stitch. It's going to stitch that yellow dot first, which is here, purple dot's next, which is there, and then the mama, which, to be honest with you, like I said, we're not even stitching the dots. Those are just placements, but I'm going to show you how I line that up. This button here is the most useful tool to me on my machine. It's how I line up everything, because I can go to whatever stitch I want to go to. So if I press that, and then I press the +1, because right now it's in the center. It's at number 0 with the stitches. But if I press 1, it's going to go to the first stitch, which is right there. So I'm going to show you again, and I'm going to try to zoom out a little bit or something. So I'm going to go back to 0, which is the center. Now, I'm going to press that +1. That is the top of the M, right there. Okay, and I hope my phone is focusing. Doesn't seem like it is. Okay, now I'm just going to jump ahead. Let's just say, I don't know, 10. Just keep going ahead a little bit. Just a little bit more. It's still, there we go. So now I've jumped ahead enough using this. If you jump ahead 1, jump ahead 10, jump ahead 100, it'll take you, plus 100 stitches, plus 10 stitches, plus 1. So now I'm over on the second dot up top, if you can see that. All right, so it's telling you where the top of the A is. All right, I'm going to open my phone up a little bit more so you can see. So let's go back to 0. All right, +1. That's the first dot. Let's just do this. That's the second dot. So you can see clearly where the top of the A is much further away from where the top of the M is. So we're just going to have to fix that. Go back to 0. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back out. I am going to rotate, and I don't rotate much, Just gonna rotate it a little bit. I'm not sure how much it'll even let me rotate it. Let's see. A lot of this is just playing around. I do not know exactly how much I'm gonna have to do it to get it to to work. All right, so now let's do the +1 and see where the M is. Okay, let's do 100, see where that one is. Might be getting there. Let's go back and rotate a little bit more. Something else I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move it a little bit. A lot of this is playing around, seeing where you end up, but the main thing is using those markers, like I said. So +1 is right there. And I'm kind of eyeballing this, and I'm gonna keep going until I think it's about right. Then I'm gonna measure it with my tape measure. Okay, let's see. All right, so it's starting to look pretty close. So I'm gonna have to put the phone down. I'm gonna measure it, and we're gonna see where we're at. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. So I had to do a little bit more rotating and moving around, just like what I did in the previous video. But basically where we're at now is, I'm gonna press 1. That's the start of my M. And that's the end of my A. Okay, and so I've measured both. I measured from the seam to where the needle will come down, right there. And then I measured from the seam to where the needle will come down there, and it's identical. It's 2 inches, so we're perfect. That's exactly where I want it to be. Placement looks good. And then, like I said, what you're gonna do basically is you're just gonna skip ahead because I'm not gonna stitch those dots. So I'm going to just see, now it's on the M. So I'm gonna backspace a little bit. Now I'm on the dot. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead 1, and that's where it's gonna start my M. And that's basically it. That's how I use that dot system. You don't have to do the dots. You can use your buttons to jump ahead without the dots. Where the top of the M is, you could jump to the very end. To me, that's more work and that's a lot of jumping, and I used to do it that way. The reason I stopped is because when you are sitting here trying to jump ahead to get right to where you need to be in that letter, because all of those are stitches, when you try to jump ahead that much to get where you are in the letter, you sometimes get so caught up in the jumping around, you forget your measurements or where exactly it was. And to me, being able to quickly bounce back and forth between the 2 dots and then just not stitch them at all, that's the easiest way to go about this. That's how I do it. I will make sure I add on a visual of my finished product. I'll also be doing a sleeve, adding names to this sleeve too. So I'll add it to the very end. Thanks for watching.